providing more affordable housing for transitionally aged youth, particularly their support of the goal set forth by the Mayor's Office of Housing of building 400 new units of low-income housing for this population of youth by the year 2015. So this is our resolution's second reading, and it's sponsored and being presented by Commissioner Benezra, and it's documented in the agendas that you have. And if you came in later on this evening and you want an agenda, there should be some on the table right there by the door. And I'd just like to hand this over to Commissioner Benezra to kind of explain more about the resolution.
So as Ms. Antrobus mentioned earlier, and as the resolution explains, the discussion about transitionally aged youth and providing affordable housing for them was something that was started by the Youth Commission out of a resolution actually written by a commissioner in 2005. So the reason for this hearing and for this resolution is really to say 5 years later, we still think this is a very important issue. The need is just as great, and we wanted to check up on the progress. So without further ado, I suppose I'll read this. Resolution urging the Mayor and Board of Supervisors to prioritize providing more affordable housing for transitionally aged youth, particularly their support of the goals set forth by the Mayor's Office of Housing of building 400 new units of low-income housing for this population by the year 2015. Whereas, as of 2006, there are 80,000 transitionally aged youth, defined as those persons between the ages of 16 and 24, living in San Francisco, and whereas many of these youth will make a smooth transition into adulthood and obtain jobs and housing, 5 to 10% of this population, or between 5,000 and 8,000 young people, will not, and are at risk of becoming homeless, jobless, or involved with the criminal justice program. And whereas the challenges facing this population of disconnected, transitionally aged youth are great. Many will have recently cycled out of public systems, have a special need or disability, have not completed high school, or are young parents themselves. And whereas transitionally aged youth are disproportionately the perpetrators and victims of crime in San Francisco, and unless provided with assistance, constitute a sizable drain on city services without contributing to San Francisco's local economy. And whereas, while it does give substantial funds to community organizations to address this issue, San Francisco currently has no citywide policy or budget directive to coordinate services, without which it is difficult to ensure progress. And whereas in 2005, the San Francisco Youth Commission passed a resolution urging the mayor to ordain a task force to study and make recommendation regarding the issues that face transitionally aged youth. And whereas former Mayor Newsom did so, and in 2007, after a year of work by task force committees that met over 60 times with city officials from a dozen departments, staff at all of the major TAY service providers, a number of prominent academics, and numerous TAY themselves, the Transitional Age Youth Task Force released its report entitled Disconnected Youth in San Francisco, a roadmap to improve the life changes of San Francisco's most vulnerable young adults, which contained 16 recommendations for city policymakers, key among which was the need for more accessible housing for disconnected TAY. And whereas the Mayor's Office of Housing took up this issue and proposed the goal of providing 400 new housing units for transitionally aged youth by the year 2015. And whereas, although the Mayor's Office of Housing and the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency have provided financing to 5 projects in pre-development, totaling 119 new units, and an additional 49 units have been provided in new supportive housing developments for transitionally aged youth, referred by the city's Human Services Agency for TAY. There are over 200 units left to be identified, with only 4 years left before the proposed deadline. And whereas, according to the Planning Department's 2010 Housing Inventory Report, 582 new units of affordable housing were constructed in 2010, which, despite representing 40% of new units added to the city housing stock, also constitute a 38% decline over the previous year. And whereas, not only is this number among the lowest seen in years, but no new units were constructed for the portion of the population labeled extremely low income, a group which youth transitioning out of the foster care system would most likely fall into. And whereas, all the major affordable housing projects completed in 2010 were designated for either senior or families. None were completed for youth. And whereas, save the issue of housing, the city family has made little progress on the majority of the other 15 recommendations of the Transitional Age Youth Task Force. And what progress has been made has been very disjointed. In fact, it is nearly impossible to assess what, if any, progress has been made on these recommendations because city departments do not collect any data on the effectiveness and quality of its TAY services. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the San Francisco Youth Commission strongly commends the Mayor's Office of Housing for the initiative they have taken in implementing the housing recommendations of the Transitional Age Youth Task Force. And be it further resolved that the Youth Commission urges the Board of Supervisors to approve all of the pending affordable housing projects designated for TAY and supported by the Mayor's Office of Housing and that the Board support this agency in its work in improving the living situations of many TAY. And be it finally resolved that the Youth Commission urges the Mayor and the Board of Supervisors make accomplishing the other recommendations of the Transitional Youth Task Force a priority, especially the creation of a citywide directive to coordinate the various services already in place for this age group.